I want to start by saying that the Navy caused this problem. We own it, and we're going to fix it. Nothing is more important than the health, the safety, and the well-being of our families, our military residents, our neighbors, and the communities that we call home. I'm keenly aware of how this has impacted the military families, as well as the local citizens of Hawaii, including my own. I've lived in Hawaii on and off for over 8 years. My father called Hawaii home. In fact, he worked for and eventually retired from the University of Hawaii. And my brother grew up on these islands. So I understand the deep connection that the people of Hawaii, particularly the Native Hawaiian community, have with the lands and the waters of Hawaii. We owe it to them to be good stewards of the land that has been entrusted to us. I'd like to quickly recount the events associated with a water contamination incident. Beginning on November 28th, residents of certain neighborhoods on our joint base Pearl Harbor Hickam here in Hawaii and the military housing began reporting vapors, discoloration, and contamination of the water provided by the Navy. The Red Hill Shaft well, which sits near the Navy's Red Hill bulk fuel storage facility, was immediately suspected to be the source of this contamination, as that was the source of the drinking water for those affected neighborhoods. So it was shut down that evening, November 28th, and it has remained isolated since that day. Later, samples from the Red Hill Shaft well would confirm the presence of petroleum contaminants. As an immediate response to that crisis, Commander U.S. Pacific Fleet, Admiral Sam Paparo, my boss, convened a joint crisis action team on the November 29th, the very next day, and he appointed me the deputy commander to lead that team and directed me to focus on meeting the immediate needs of our impacted residents, restoring safe drinking water, and remediating the Red Hill Shaft well. Once the Joint Crisis Action Team had completed immediate actions to isolate the source of contamination, and provide public health guidance, drinking water, and lodging support to the affected residents, Admiral Paparo revised that order, expanded our recovery effort to a whole of Navy and DoD effort by bringing in appropriate Echelon 2 Navy commands. And those are the members sitting here with me to testify, and assigning each of those commanders clear lines of operation to direct their actions. We also formalized a joint and interagency response effort together with the EPA, the Hawaii Department of Health, and senior representatives from each of the military services that were affected. The Commander U.S. Pacific Fleet, as the senior officer present, retains command of the overall recovery effort across all the lines of operation, with support of the designated Echelon 2 commands with me today and the interagency team that we formed. Among the witnesses today are the commanders of those Echelon 2 commands that we directed to assume overall lead for both planning and execution. Further, as the Navy senior officer present, my boss, Admiral Paparo, was best postured to direct and supervise an independent and comprehensive investigation into Red Hill. U.S. Pacific Fleet Commander is not in the chain of command that operates or maintains Red Hill. U.S. Pacific Fleet Commander is not in the chain of command that operates or maintains Red Hill. U.S. Pacific Fleet Commander is not in the chain of command that operates or maintains Red Hill. U.S. Pacific Fleet Commander is not in the chain of command that operates or maintains Red Hill. So immediately after the November 20th fuel spill at the fuel facility, Admiral Paparo directed a nuclear-trained admiral to conduct a judge advocate general's investigation of that spill, and to look for any linkage to the earlier 6 May fuel spill at Red Hill. After residents on the Navy's water system began reporting contamination shortly after we had directed that investigation, Admiral Paparo expanded the scope of that investigation to determine whether those recent fuel spills had contributed to or had caused the water contamination in the Navy's water supply system. So that holistic investigation of the fuel spills and the water contamination will be submitted to PAC Fleet on or about the 14th of January, later this week. Recently, the Pacific Fleet Commander on the 7th of January issued a tasking order directing actions to fully comply with the Hawaii Department of Health emergency order, with the Hawaii Department of Health emergency order, with the Hawaii Department of Health emergency order, with the Hawaii Department of Health emergency order associated with Red Hill. This includes developing plans and taking actions to remediate and restore the Red Hill shaft well, contracting for independent third-party assessments to restore Red Hill to operation, and making preparations to defuel the facility. All of those efforts are in progress. The water contamination at Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam has required an intense and collaborative effort between the Navy, our other military service partners on the island who are also residents of our base, of our base housing. The Hawaii Department of Health and Department of Land and Natural Resources, the U.S. EPA, and the many local, state, and federal legislators that have stepped in to provide assistance and guidance in our process. This teamwork has produced a comprehensive water system recovery plan that is currently in execution. We're grateful for the partnership, the expertise, and the perspective of our federal, state, and local government officials, and our Native Hawaiian leaders. They are tremendous advocates for the community. So I want to thank this subcommittee. I want to thank Hawaii's congressional delegation for their support and ongoing commitment to resolve the Navy's drinking water contamination. We recognize how much these events impacted the lives of so many, and we are firmly committed to restoring safe drinking water in a manner that builds trust and protects the land and the waters of Hawaii. Our joint team will not rest until everyone in the Navy's drinking water system has access to safe drinking water and the Red Hill shaft well has been cleaned up and restored. I look forward to your questions, and I'm going to turn it over to Vice Admiral Lindsay now.